Okay, so hello everybody, very nice to meet you. My name is Camille Morino. I am the director and co-founder of Aware, and I'm very happy today to introduce Maura Reilly, who's head of team, and Agata Jakubowska. And before handing them the microphone, I'll just say a few words about Aware. After our last webinar in January with Tal Dekel on feminist contemporary art in Israel. So as you probably already know, Aware, as for Archives of Women Artists Research and Exhibition, is a French nonprofit organization that I co-founded in 2014. Our goal is to produce and distribute information on women artists of the 20th century, especially through our website, which welcomes more than 45 visitors per month now. We collaborate with major museums, universities, and research centers in France and, of course, abroad. Our action relies on public funding, donations, and, of course, private donors. Maura, my dear friend, you're our curator and art writer who has organized dozens of exhibitions internationally with a specific focus of marginalized artists and women artists. You have written extensively on global contemporary art, curatorial practice, including most recently curatorial activism towards an ethics of curating, which was named a top 10 best art book of 2018 by the New York Times. So you're a star, and we're so happy to have you. Don't choke on your coffee. So you are also working on a new book project, The Ethical Museum, to be published in 2022. You hold a PhD in art history from the Institute of Fine Arts, New York University, and you are now an associate professor of art history and museum studies at Arizona State University. And you have a fantastic tan. You're so happy.
I do have a tan.
So welcome, Maura.
Thank you.
And welcome everybody.
Thank you so much, Camille. I want to correct one thing. You said you have 45 visitors to Aware monthly. It is 45,000.
Yes.
That's a big difference. It is extraordinary the amount of traffic that Aware gets, and it's really important for people to know that it's just a global resource. And it's extraordinary. If you haven't seen the site, please do. So as Camille mentioned, I'm working with her and her team on a really exciting project, which is actually called TEAM. And that stands for Teaching, E-Learning, Agency, and Mentoring. And it's an international network, an academic network, that's dedicated to the production and sharing of knowledge about women artists across the world. So in essence, its objective is to enrich and expand Aware's website with the priority, we've given the priority to geographic areas that are still underrepresented to date. And we really want to support the training of the next generation, the younger generation of art historians who are interested in issues of gender and who understand the importance of women artists. So TEAM is really, as you can imagine, meant to be also a network of solidarity and transnational reflection on issues that we all care about deeply in and around women artists. Now, to date, this is our first pilot year of running TEAM, but it's a network currently of 14 academics and 65 of their master's and doctoral students who are currently writing, hundreds of biographical entries for Aware's website. And it covers 5 continents, the content. So we're super excited about this new initiative. We hope we can continue it working with additional academics and students. And Agata Jakubowska is one of the members of this team and has brought to us 5 stellar students who have been working with us. And Agata is an associate professor in the Department of Art History at the Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznań, Poland. Now, she's the author of several books, super prolific. One of them is On the Margins of the Mirror, The Female Body and Polish Woman Artists. That was published, unfortunately, in Polish, not English, in 2004, because I'd be reading it. And she also wrote multiple portraits of Alina Szaponiszewska. Nishkov, I hope I got right, she's a sculptor, brilliant sculptor if you don't know her work. She's also the editor of Alina Shapotnishkov, Awkward Objects, which was in 2011. Another book, Zofia Kulik, Methodology, My Love. That was a very recent one in 2019. And she co-edited with the esteemed Katie Deepwell another book called All Women Art Spaces in Europe in the long 1970s, which I've just purchased. So over the last few years, Agata has been working on a project that's devoted to the globalized history of women-only exhibitions in Poland. Very interesting topic. And she's now completing a book devoted to the Polish sculptor Maria Beniska Perez under the working title Art and Women's Emancipation in Socialist Europe. And finally, she's currently leading the project Gender Politics and Art of the Socialist European States. So as you can see, Agata is hugely prolific, unbelievably busy, and we are very lucky to have her here with us today. So thank you, Agata.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Camille and Maura, for initiating this project and for organizing this project, but also this series of webinars. I think it is very important to listen to history of women artists written in different parts of the world. And so I find it really crucial for the developing of research on women artists. I will share my presentation with you now. Anne, can I share my screen? Because I see information that host disabled participant screen share.
You should be able to share the screen. Maybe try
I will
again.
try. Yes.
Perfect.
One moment, please. Okay. Maura has already mentioned this research seminar, Gender Politics in the Art of European Socialist States, that I've been busy with for 2 years almost. And I'm showing you members, participants of this seminar, because some of them I invited to take part in team project. And you will see in my presentation, you will see a couple of references to their work and to their biographical notes. So this research seminar is very important for my talk today, also because I learned a lot of these participants. From these participants, I learned a lot of facts about different women artists, but also our joint discussions helped me to formulate more arguments that you will hear today. So the talk of my talk is discussing women artists in European socialist states. And I put discussing at the beginning because I wanted to underline that I am very much interested in thinking about how to write history of women artists in particular parts of the world. And we need to start with defining, obviously, the scope of our project. And in this case, I will concentrate on Eastern Europe. I'm sorry for this mistake, small mistake here. Eastern Europe, or you can call it also Eastern Bloc, and on the period between 1945 and 89. And obviously, it is a very common framework. You can meet it in many different books, but we should not consider it obvious. And it is clear for me that each time we should ask ourselves whether whether this framework is the best one that we can use. And here, in this case, I think that we can write about women artists within this framework because of a specific political project that was realized in in Eastern Bloc, in state socialism, in socialist states, to put it differently. And because women issues, gender and women issues played a very important role within this political project of socialist states. So art history of Eastern Europe is very often dominated, or has been dominated, by what is called totalitarian model scholarship. That is, it is very much dominated by thinking whether artists oppose or did not oppose communist regime. But I want to propose to think about art history in Eastern Bloc differently, and to start from the notion of emancipation of women. Emancipation of women, that was one of crucial elements actually of socialist political project. And it was very much present in public discourse developed in different countries that created this Eastern Bloc. So my crucial question today is what was the relationship between emancipatory discourse that developed in European socialist states and women's art in women's art? And I will organize my talk around several subjects that you can see here. And we will start obviously with labor. We will start with labor as in this political project developed in European socialist states, labor was a crucial aspect of emancipation of women. It was believed that labor can help women liberate in economic terms, can help give women independence, and socialist states were really proud of this idea, and they advocated this idea internationally on many different occasions. So obviously we can find many different representations of women working in different environments. What is important to remember, and that is that many women artists were active before the World War II, before the European socialist states began to realize this political project. And here, this Estonian woman artist is a good example of this. She was very much involved in left-wing politics before the war, and after the war, she continued her work and did not start it from the beginning. And when I thought what is the difference between representations of working women in the artworks made by women artists in comparison to artworks made by men artists, I think that obviously we can meet everywhere, we can meet new environments in which women started to work. It was very popular, like in this case, to depict women working in industrial environment. But it is not what is obviously typical for women artists. What is specific is, I would say, that concentration on women as individuals and presenting them as, I'm sorry, it's not a good example, maybe I will go back here, presenting portraits of women working. And here you can have a small quotation on Aino Bach from 1970 that in a way shows that she was perceived in this way. So I would say that women artists very much showed fascination with women working in different environments. And here I will show you Larisa Nikolaevna, who visited after her study, shortly after her study, she visited Ukrainian village, and then she painted really many works depicting women she met there. And here, obviously, we have a kind of a group portrait, not individual portrait. But I am showing this because her works represent or display fascination with women artists and with female environment. And here we have another example of artists from GDR, Doris Ziegler, who visited a factory in Leipzig, and also fascinated and interested in women artists. She then prepared this 5 portraits of women she met there. Here you can see first reference that I mentioned before, a reference about biographical note written by Constance Krieger for our online database. All these artists, I'm just showing a couple of examples. I'm not able to show you many examples. But what is important is that all these artists were prominent artists. All these artists were appreciated by the state, but by the governments, and they are a good example, or on their example we could raise a question that is often asked, whether this art was just an element of propaganda, whether their works were just reflect the politics of the ruling parties and communist governments, or whether they can be considered as advocates of feminist or women's emancipatory politics. And in this debate, I share the opinion of many historians that women artists, participated actively in the socialist project of emancipation of women, that they actually shared some ideas of socialist governments, and they observed and commented the way this political project is realized, and obviously to the extent that it was possible in these countries where the public sphere did not exist. But they were also, as I said before, they were just interested in women's experiences, in women's lives, and in women themselves, also in the experiences of women who are working women. And I have concentrated so far on paid work. But obviously housework was also part of emancipatory discourse developed in socialist states. And this is because the project, one could say that the project of emancipation of women through work was not fully successful in the socialist states for a couple of reasons. And obviously, please do remember that I need to generalize. Yes, I cannot go into details in this short talk. And but we can say about 3 reasons for which this project was not fully successful, that are quite common for the whole region. One of them are traditional values that persisted in the society. So in generally speaking, the society considered still housework as belonging to women. And the second problem was that institutions that the state created to take over most of the work or most of the housework were not sufficiently developed. There was still lack of this kind of institutions. And also the third problem was what is called by economic historians shortage economy. I'm sorry. So shortages in foods and many other goods that made it difficult to buy anything, and that made it that made women spend a lot of time on shopping. And these issues were also intensively discussed in women's magazines, in particular in popular texts, also in scholarly texts on women's labor. And these issues are, and these issues are were also presented in documentary films and photographs. Here you have 2 examples from Poland. When I started to think about works by women artists who raised these questions, I could hardly remember any examples, which was really surprising for me, because I knew that this subject was, as I said, was really intensively discussed. And I think that this is a problem not of art, I would say, but art history. I mean that by this I mean that probably there were a lot of works, that artworks that dealt with a housework made by women, but they are not discussed by art historians. Art history narrative was dominated by paid labor, by representations of paid labor, by representations of women workers. And so works by artists like these two artists from Lithuania and from Czechoslovakia are still to be discovered. Sometimes they have already been discovered in local contexts, but this local research is not known internationally. So I think that really this is a job to be done for art historians dealing with women artists in European socialist states. Some young art historians are interested in the subject, and here and they deal with avant-garde women artists. And here I will present you two examples of this research. Here is the research on Zofia Kulik. Here I'm mentioning Zofia Kulik, who worked together with Przemysław Kwiek as Kwie Kulik. They created a studio in their apartment. But she also did several solo works in which she addressed a problem of maintaining the space, I would say, about that related to artworks that dealt with living and working together. And another example of Czech artist Nadezhda Pliskova. I think if you still don't have her in your database, and I hope that Mariana will write a bibliographical note soon. She also addressed this problem of division of labor. In her marriage, she was married to a sculptor, but also in art circles. And I must say that I very like this graphic work. She was a graphic artist and poet. And this 10 gentlemen and 1 lady is a graphic work that, according to Mariana, deals with her presence in a male-dominated art circle that met in many pubs, we could say pubs. Let's go to the second subject, peace. Obviously, peace was another crucial element in the discourse on emancipation of women in socialist states. Women were perceived themselves as, in a way, responsible for peace. Here I am showing you a cover of a magazine published by Women's International Democratic Federation. This was a federation created, as you can see, in Paris, in which women in Eastern Europe, but not only from Eastern Europe, participated very actively. And it is often said that, for example, this Women's International Democratic Federation led to establishment of International Women's Year in 1975. But here, I wanted to show you this cover because of this emblem of peace, to illustrate the significance of this subject. And this Democratic Federation and also other women's organizations always underlined that their objective is to fight for peace, or to care for peace. So many works like this one can be found, that artworks that just demonstrate protests against the war, in which women can be seen on the front line of this protest. And here I don't have a color reproduction of this work, but you can see a color postcard because this work functioned also in this form as a postcard. And in this work, it is clear that protests against the war were very much related still to World War II and to remembrance of World War II. But it was also related to current conflicts, military conflicts. And for example, I am here showing you a short article dealing with exhibition of Chilean arpillerias organized in Łódź in Poland in '79. And I am showing it because I want to repeat or to quote some statements from this article. What this article underlines is are similarities of fights, of different fights, and like the one in Chile and like the one in Poland or in Eastern Europe, against fascism, but also against imperialism. And this is why very often this anti-imperialism was strongly present here and created a kind of international solidarity in which women participated. I would like to underline that this is the area, this anti-fascism and anti-imperialism was an area where official politics of state socialist regimes and underground activists met very often. So you could meet similar messages, I would say, in official art, but also in artworks created by women participants of alternative art scenes. And here I am showing you a couple of examples from different countries of artworks that deal more or less directly with issues of this military conflicts. So we have Zorka Saglova. I'm sorry, I did not add here countries. So we have Zorka Saglova from Czechoslovakia, Krista Jaitner from GDR, Zuzana Senes from Hungary, and Geta Bratescu from Romania. And you can here see a couple of examples of artworks in which materials and tools associated with femininity were used in this Pacific, I would say, artworks. But they are very often, this Pacific message is very often in a way abstract. But I would like to show you, I think it can be interesting for you, more precise example, concrete example of this anti-imperialistic discourse that existed, as I said, in official politics and in underground movement. Angela Davis was really an important person in Eastern Europe at the beginning of the 70s. And I am just presenting examples of references to her, references from GDR. You have here in the middle, you have small information from Polish magazine for women that this magazine reported the story of Angela Davis. This note says that she has just left the prison. And you have this poster by one of the members of Orfeo group, poster that was used to announce public demonstration in favor of Angela Davis, who, that was organized in Hungary, in Budapest. where the alternative art scene and official art did not meet was obviously the critique of totalitarian or post-totalitarian state socialism regimes. And here, women artists from alternative art scene obviously formulated, maybe it's not obvious, but formulated such a critique of these totalitarian regimes, introducing femininity as a force that could undermine stability, integrity of this post-totalitarian regime. And here I will also again give you a couple of examples. Here is Dora Maurer, Hungarian artist. These examples very often dealt with official holidays, with military defilades, with other public rituals that served to demonstrate the power. And women artists created a kind of alternatives, I would say. Here you have an example of an alternative private May Day demonstration, as Dora Maurer called it, alternative to 1st May parade. 1st May parades were official holidays during this period in all of the countries of Eastern Bloc. And the character of this official holiday changed, but it was always very important. And many artists interfered in different ways. Sometimes they just participating, creating a kind of private performances. Sometimes they did this art projects outside, as here. I am not sure whether it is visible, but this the person who is walking is quite a small girl. We cannot see her precisely, but I think it is important here. And this one is a very well-known work. I will not deal with it, but it is exactly in this context we can talk about the Sania Ivekovich performance Triangle. Here, now I will show you two examples of artworks that are not the performances, but photographs or photo montages. Here's Orsi Drozdik from Budapest, who pasted her photographs. I hope you can see it. Her photographs either naked or semi-naked. There was a whole series of these photo montages. Here I decided to show you these two that I related, that intervened in this official meetings organized next to Lenin statue, and she used official, I would say, photographs into which she inserted her photos. And here we have, in a way, similar, let's say similar artwork by Eva Parton, Polish artist, self-identification. Here's again a series. I'm showing you just 4 elements from this series, and where we can see the artist, her body juxtaposed with people on the streets of Warsaw. Obviously, it's a photo montage, it's not a performance. One photo, the one when she's standing in front of Poniatowski monument, or rather in front of a presidential palace, this building, was censored. It was not allowed to show it. She was not allowed to show it. It was presented during this exhibition, during this performance that was organized in underground gallery, and she did the performance Homage à Solidarność in 1982, and this this performance is very important because it demonstrates that women artists introduced femininity, I would say, not only they used their femininity not only in dialogues with state, official state holidays and rituals, but in this case, we have a dialogue with a solidarity movement, the mass social movement that developed to advance social change. And she also tried to draw attention to the fact that women's issues do not occupy maybe the proper space in this political opposition movement. And let's move to the next point, socialist consumerism. As I said before, the economic system of European socialist states is often named shortage economy because of the lack of goods. But the governments in most of the countries that belong to Eastern Bloc in the late of the 1950s decided to introduce a certain form of consumerism. They started to provide more goods to raise living standards because they wanted to meet their vision of modern society. And also they wanted to, they knew they need to satisfy some rising demands of the society. So it is, in literature, it is often called socialist consumerism. What is specific about socialist consumerism is obviously that it is controlled by socialist states. It was controlled by the socialist states. It's also among the goods that were produced and distributed in a bigger amount were beauty cosmetics. And here I am showing you Polish examples, and the reason for doing is that I know it best, Polish examples, and also that I can just here use my own research, and you can see it in a quality of photos. These are just, I would say, my visual notes taken in libraries. So here you have what you can see here are illustrations of the fact that in European socialist states, I think that there was a relatively small number of beauty magazines. In Poland, there was one, this beauty Uroda magazine. There were several magazines for women, but just this one was printed on a better quality paper and introduced this kind of photographs. But you could find increased number of beauty cosmetics, as I said, as lipsticks, for example, and also you could find advertisements of this beauty products, as here. Advertisement was also controlled by states, and you could also find on the right hand side, you can see one page from manual devoted to beauty, where you could find information about how to correct one's defects, beauty defects. So I'm showing these examples just to illustrate that this kind of discussion was also present in popular magazines and popular books. Although, as I said, it was always controlled, and I remember reading about one meeting that took place in March 72. So we have exactly this year, 72, March 72, at the Balaton Lake in Hungary. It was a meeting of chief editors of women's magazines from different countries, not only from different European countries, from Eastern and Western Europe. And chief editors of magazines from Eastern Europe, from Eastern Bloc, underlined it very strongly that they are happy that their magazines invite women or encourage women to be ambitious, to work for their independence and not to rely on men. And they very strongly underlined that commercial magazines that are produced in Western Europe do the opposite, that they somehow encourage women to be dependent on men. Yes, so this I am just talking. I'm trying to show you the kind of discussions that developed in women's magazines at that time. And women artists obviously reacted to this increasing number of beauty cosmetics and discussions about it. And again, here is a couple of artworks that deal with the subject. What you have written here, production date and expire date, is what is present on the small plaque here in Maja Pinińska-Bereś work. Sania Iwekowicz did a lot of artworks related to the subject, and they are quite well known. And here are two maybe less known women artists, Bela Kolażowa and Geta Bratescu from Romania. This Geta Bratescu work is very interesting because it actually can be interpreted in two different contexts, in the context of socialist consumers, but it can be interpreted also in the context of political resistance. And maybe this tension is what makes this work fascinating. And one more example here, example from GDR. And I have chosen this example because it's one of very rare artworks that were created by a group of women artists. It is what is typical, I would say, for women artists from European socialist states is that they worked basically individually, and you cannot find many joint projects similar to this one. And almost the last point, sexual liberation. Again, it is often repeated that as much as consumerism did not exist in Eastern Europe, also sexual revolution was not present there, which is also not true, at least not fully true. I would like to mention three aspects of sexual liberation in European socialist states. One is that one can observe that each political economic liberation that took place in different countries of Eastern Bloc in different moments was accompanied by liberation of morals, what one would say, and with increased presence of eroticism in the culture, in popular culture, but also in the art. And I'm showing you two examples here, one from Czechoslovakia. This is very interesting, that basically beauty contests were not organized in European socialist states during the period. But from time to time, they were organized. And here you have example of Czechoslovakia when exactly during the liberalization period in the second half of the 60s, many beauty contests were organized. And you have example from Poland again. Here exactly when in Czechoslovakia this liberal period ended in the 70s, it started or increased, I would say, in Poland. And since 1970, exhibitions, Venus started to be organized in Krakow. Exhibitions depicting female nudes, just female nudes, and they were incredibly popular, and also some art books were published with examples of these female nudes exhibited. So this is this, as I said, political liberalization was accompanied in a sense, or resulted maybe in increased presence of artists, but also we could say with increased presence of objectified female body in public sphere. Another aspect of sexual liberalization is that discourse on women's sexuality developed in European socialist states, started developing already in the late 50s, but especially during 70s, it was late 60s, late 70s, it was present in magazines. It was also present in a form of many books written by experts. It was a, generally speaking, expert discourse that was present also in popular culture. But I am showing you here the most popular book published in Poland by Michalina Wisłocka. It was published earlier in magazines. Fragments of this book were published earlier, but it took her a couple of years to publish it in the form of a book. And I show you covers of two first editions of this book to show limitations of this discussions on women's sexuality, because the first cover of the first edition clearly demonstrates that although it was very important for this author and for other experts to underline that it is necessary that equal relations in marriages, also in terms of sexual life, exist, it was limited to marriages. Yes, and it is very clear that you have this marriage on the cover, and one could say that I would say that this subject of women's sexuality is where emancipatory discourse of socialist state, of socialist governments, and women expectations somehow went apart. Some historians underline that in the 70s you can see that you can see very clearly these limitations of emancipatory state socialist discourse. Limitations, yes, I would say limitations. And the third aspect of sexual liberation is the influence of counterculture, especially of hippies culture that was also present in Poland, and that was also present in art circles. And here I'm showing you two male. I know this is a lecture on women artists, but I wanted to illustrate my case by showing you two examples of male artists from Poland. Here you can see Happening by Tadeusz Kantor. Tadeusz Kantor is present here in the background. You can maybe hardly see him, but also the woman that is seen very clearly is an art critic. So, and I think I find it very symptomatic, I would say, for how this liberalization, sexual liberalization of counterculture was understood in art circles, but it actually meant, as I said before, somehow objectification of men, objectification of women and women bodies. And here you have a photo from Henryk Starzewski, a hero of avant-garde in Poland, in his studio with this semi-naked woman. Again, these are Polish examples, and again, you need to remember that this region was very much diverse, but I tried to concentrate of typical trends that appeared in most of the countries, maybe in different periods, maybe in different intensity, but they were somehow common for the whole blog. And examples of women artists who reacted to these different aspects of sexual liberation. So we have examples of women artists who also worked with this counterculture ideas, I would say, with these ideas of free love, but differently, but obviously differently, either critically, as Piniska Beres, either concentrating on female body and alternative presentations on female body, as in case of Jana Żelibska. We have also many different, I'm just showing you two artworks, but we have many different artworks by women artists who explored women's femininity, women's sexuality, sorry, in a more abstract or more direct way. And here you have this example of Vlasta Delimar or Ilona Keseru from Hungary. And third strategy, I would say, is a strategic play of some of women artists with this sexual liberation. One of these women artists use this sexual liberation to create their image, their persona. And here you have two examples of Natalia L. and her piece from '74 when she presented herself as erotic woman, I would say. And the example of Katalin Ladik. Katalin Ladik is interesting because here to show you also differences between countries in Eastern Europe, because she was active between Hungary and Yugoslavia. She was based in Novi Sad, that is situated between these two countries in a way. And when she performed naked at the beginning of 70s, creating this specific image of her, in Hungary, she was very much received as a product of emancipatory politics of Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was always perceived in the Eastern Bloc as the most Western country, and so she was perceived as an example of this, that Yugoslav politics somehow influenced her in this regard. And finally, feminism. As you maybe noticed, I hardly used this term feminism in my talk. And I did it on purpose, obviously. I perceived many of these works that I presented feminist artworks. If we understand feminism broadly as critically addressing or critically analyzing experiences of women or issues related to women, then I think that most of these artworks can be considered feminist. But I did not use this term before because I think that it is not, we should not start talking, we should not start narrating women artists in European socialist states by making references to feminism understood narrowly, yes, as to feminism understood as feminist movement and feminist art movement developed in the West, to speak broadly. So I don't think that we should consider events, books, artworks created, I don't know, in the 70s in California and London as starting points of references to talk about women artists active in European socialist states. Obviously, feminism understood in this more narrow way as feminist art movement appeared in Eastern Europe at certain moments, entered, I would say, Eastern Europe, but was just one of voices in a discussion on women's issue, on a discussion that had developed for decades in Eastern Europe. And this is what I wanted to underline by talking about emancipatory discourse in this region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Agata, for this inspiring and thoughtful presentation that I think allowed to all of us to better understand the specificity of Central and Eastern European context, which is very different from what we know in France or in other parts of Western Europe. So I really wish it could last longer, because I think there are many topics that you could develop, but the time is running, and I'm actually also happy that we have still time to ask some questions, and I hope they will be many. I have personally many questions already. So I will just quickly introduce myself. So my name is Matylda Taszycka, and I am head of research programs at Aware. So I will be very happy to moderate the second part of the encounter with Agata Jakubowska. Dear listeners, maybe just a quick rappel. You can ask questions through the chat box or question and answers box, and I will be very happy to read them out loud.
You can also, sorry, Matylda, you can also raise your hand and I can turn your mic on if you prefer to ask your question directly.
Oh, perfect. So maybe let's start with the first question. I will maybe ask the first questions to start. So, and then we will give you the mic. Your presentation, Agata, brings the situation of the women artists in Eastern Bloc before 1989. Thinking about two things: that despite the political discourse, as you showed, of equality, it seems that many of them were finally confronted to the very patriarchal system of artistic promotion. And this is something that it seems quite visible for me, whether we speak about the official system of promotion, like official art world with its institutions, but also if we think about the neo-avant-garde groups and unofficial exhibition spaces. This is what we saw also with these so important Polish artists like Tadeusz Kantor or Henryk Starzewski objectivating women artists. And so I would like you to comment on this hypothesis and maybe answer how difficult was it to have an important artistic career as a women artist in the Eastern Bloc? Obviously, we will generalize. It's impossible to talk about all the individual cases, but what's the result of your research about it?
Okay, so this is really problematic because if women's labor is supported so much, then we would expect that also women artists, women working as artists would be supported. And it was the case, but only to some extent. So we can observe in Eastern Bloc that there were more and more women artists graduating from art schools, more and more women artists exhibiting at big exhibitions, big important exhibitions, and also active in artist associations, and the numbers are bigger than in Western world, I would say. They are not perfect. They were not equal, but numbers are better. But on the other hand, as I said, all these limitations like traditional values in the society made it obviously difficult for women artists to develop their careers, and many of them write about these problems in their diaries, for example, or something like this. And also, what is interesting and what you said is that actually alternative art scene was more traditional in comparison to official art scene, and I said that I like very much this Nadezhda Pliskova graphic work because this demonstrates it well that you have one woman among 10 men, and it was very often the case that you had one woman active in avant-garde circles, and so they were somehow separated. So, and it is often also said that it's quite typical also for dissident circles in Eastern Bloc, that they were not very open to ideas of emancipation of women, I would say, or less open, and that it, in practically speaking, it enabled women artists to develop. So there is no easy, there is no one answer. I would say yes, one easy answer.
Thank you, Agata. It's completely understandable. And I have one comment from Constance Kruger. Thank you very much, Agata, for this interesting talk and for summarizing our collaboration, especially for your critical ending with the feminism topic. I only have a short remark concerning the war topic. There were kids on the cover, also in the painting, and I am wondering about the relation of women, children, and the peace movement, let's say. I think we have to think about that in the future.
Yes, obviously, when I showed you this peace protest against the war, it was a mother. A mother was represented, and these were women who were considered to fight for peace, but especially mothers. And obviously, the part of this discourse was imagining better future, which is very much related to socialist states' ideas of building better societies. Yes, and children were often called the future of our countries, also in relation to this problem of peace, of war and peace. So yes, obviously children are a very important element of this image. Yes.
There is one question for Lena. I'm sorry if I don't read it right. Hi, Agata. You earlier mentioned the piece face painting action from DDR as a rare group work in the Eastern European context at that time. I would love if you could develop on this thought and on female artist collaboration in the Eastern Bloc context, because I have to say that I felt surprised to hear that. Thanks for your lecture. It was very inspiring, Lena.
Women collaboration, yes. As I said, this example was from GDR and from the later period of GDR. And GDR is, I would say, is an exception, because in GDR in the 80s existed a couple of women groups. And they were really very active, very progressive, very I would say also brave in a way. But as I said, it is exception, and in other countries we do not see many cooperations between women. But also I need to say that cooperation was happened more often among women who were official artists. It was very interesting for me to know, to learn that there were actually some exhibitions, all-women exhibitions organized also in Stalinist times, and they were organized by women artists who wanted to exhibit together and who were encouraged to exhibit together. But in these avant-garde circles, you can hardly meet. I don't want to say that you can find no collaborative projects, but very few of them. And I don't actually know. I don't know why. I mean, I've been thinking about it for a really long time, and somehow I think it is related somehow to the question of also these women artists identifying with themselves or not with feminism, and the reluctance to identify with feminism, and somehow it's, I would say it's that it was not cool, which is not maybe a very scientific explanation, but more a psychological and strategical maybe explanation. It was strategically not good for them to cooperate together. Or at least they thought so, but it is not good.
Thank you, Agata, for this very complete answer. We have questions from Griselda Pollock and Anke Kempkes, who will ask their questions directly. So maybe please, Griselda Pollock, you could start.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Hello, Agata, and thank you so very, very much for this fascinating and incredibly important, both fascinating talk and incredibly important work that you and your colleagues are doing. Not only obviously is this the struggle for the decolonization of art history, there's the decolonization of feminist art history, which has been skewed, obviously, as we know, towards the Anglophone or the Western European and the United States. So I was very interested in your indication of a connection between the women in the Eastern states, socialist states, Eastern European socialist states, with Latin America, because I understand that part and parcel of some of the progressive work in the socialist countries was not just peace, but kind of solidarity with a lot of African nations and emerging nations, and particularly struggles against totalitarianism. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about that section on peace and anti-imperialism, because that indicates to me a much larger world and an already a kind of concern, which for all the difficulties of the Stalinist legacy of socialism, there still is an underlying solidarity with struggles, because I know of various Eastern Europeans who, went to Lebanon and helped train various people in photography that Doreen Menke has written about very interestingly. But I wonder if you could say a little bit more about that topic that you spoke of, since it seemed to be about an internationalist, and you said it led to possibly international women's life, so that this really places a leading force in this expanded, not just national, but expanded sense of international solidarity.
Yes, thank you for this. I think that it is really very, very important, and somehow not research, I would say. And we have a couple of research projects dealing with global socialism. Such as, for example, there is a book on global architecture in global socialism, and not about women solidarity. And when I read different relations reports from women's meeting, it was always very strongly underlined. So you can, for example, read information about meeting of women organization in Krakow in a district called Nowa Huta, and you learn that at the beginning of their meeting they expressed solidarity with women in Vietnam, for example. And it is not just one example, and there are many examples like this. So it was, and also I mentioned this meeting organized in March 72 in Hungary, this meeting of chief editors of women's magazines. And there was a very interesting discussion there, because they organized this meeting under again to discuss peace. Peace was mentioned in the invitation, and some of the participants said that maybe we should not discuss peace anymore because it's maybe let's concentrate on equal rights and things like this. But other participants answered that there are still so many women who are in difficult situation because of military conflicts in different parts of the world, and they gave examples of really different parts of the world, so from all continents, that we should still care about, we should still think about these women and somehow try to help them. They did not do much for these women, but they definitely discussed it. And I think that also I must say that I was thinking about making this kind of project, but I haven't researched it in detail yet. So I don't know much about women artworks. Yes, so I gave you a couple of examples that are quite well known. Maybe this example from GDR is not well known, but I think that if we dig deeper, we can find really huge number of artworks expressing this kind of solidarity. And also what is very important is that it is something that is very contemporary. Yes, I mean, in a sense that it is very important for us today. But this is what I find crucial in this notion of solidarity. Yes, I could talk for a long time, but I think this is again one of the subjects that requires research. I think that that the narrations of women artists in Eastern Socialist states are too stable, I would say, yes, and we need to somehow dismantle this and go into different directions, and this anti-imperialist is definitely one of them.
Thank you, Agata, for your reply. So there is another question from Anke Kempkes.
Yes, hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, first of all, thank you, Agata. This was a great overview. And of course, it's an incredibly large field. So one can, of course, never, ever cover everything in such a short time. Nevertheless, I wanted to talk about a few artists where you did not go so deep into this topic, which I find among some of the most original work of the post-war time, which is the work that came out of the post-trauma work, of the post-Holocaust work. Like, for example, Alina Czapocznikow, of course, Anna Rosenstein, and to some extent also Maria Anto. And so these are all Polish examples now. And I'm mentioning those because they followed a language which was sitting so in such a complicated way, right? In the post-war, even pre-war, but also post-war communist history, which is surrealism, or like a language of post-surrealism, which was under a lot of suspicion, yeah, in the communist regimes, and particularly in Poland. And but these artists were using this language in a way for their own, one would say today, proto-feminist iconographies and political agendas in such an original way that I would say was for me starting to engage with Polish female artists, like some of the most moving and most interesting engagements. While I would say, because you were saying you were talking about some of the artists from the 1970s, and in a way that I almost felt a bit as if this work was not so much connected to feminist work from the West, but I see it actually quite contrary. I think that work like Nataliel or Partum, or even to some extent Dora Maar and Ladik, when I look at this work, it has a lot of similarities in its conceptual feminist experimentation to artwork of the same period from the West. Also, we could say very much Latin America. I don't know if people saw the Radical Women from Latin America exhibition that toured and started in the Hammer Museum. A lot of the experimentation there of artists was quite similar in its conceptual and structuralist kind of techniques and experimentations, also performative experimentations. So I just wanted to bring up a few more aspects of this incredibly broad and deep field, of course, which is also has a lot of more individualistic expressions. Yeah, like for example, this complicated relation with surrealism and the way how women artists in the East took that up after the war.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for this couple of issues, and I will try to quickly answer them. Obviously, there are many similarities, but definitely on purpose, I tried to avoid talking about it because this is the starting point of more of the narratives on women artists from Eastern European states, whether they were similar or not. So what I wanted to underline is that Eastern Europe has its own tradition of emancipatory discourse, and you can accept of seeing it in a context of Western discourse. You can also perceive them in the context of their own emancipatory tradition. So this is one thing. Another thing, yes, I did not mention this artists who dealt with Holocaust trauma. And also I did not, generally speaking, I did not talk about sexual violence against women, which was for a long time taboo in Eastern Europe, and also in narratives on art and women art created in Eastern Europe. But if we concentrate on this, we can find many, I wanted to say interesting, but I would say are maybe moving examples that are very important. So yes, I agree, and thank you for mentioning this. But also I will, as Maura said, that I wrote quite a lot about Shapochnikov, and obviously maybe it is strange that I did not mention her during my talk, but I did it because, and this is also maybe our, I will just now somehow discuss with myself as I presented this framework for my research as Eastern Bloc and 45-89, but I think that it is very important to actually undermine, to challenge this this framework. Yes, and Alina Shapochnikov can be a good example to challenge this framework because she lived in Poland, but she also lived in Paris, in France, for many years. So actually, if you want to discuss women artists from Eastern Europe in their socio-political context, then cases like Alina Shapochnikov, but as many other artists, complicate the situation, which is great, but I did not have time to complicate it, yes. But also you can complicate it in a different way. You can complicate it by taking into account that there were other countries in Europe that introduced socialist politics. And I mean, for example, Sweden And it was very interesting for me to see that when in 1960 in Budapest, an exhibition was, all-women exhibition was organized to celebrate 50th anniversary of Women's Day. They invited Sweden. They invited artists from Hungary, Romania, GDR, Poland, but also Sweden. So it was also considered as a belonging to this idea of belonging to this socialist idea of emancipation of women. So I think that obviously always need to limit our research and somehow, but it is also very important to look at these boundaries, yes, and to somehow to discuss them all the time. So, which you can do, as I said, with examples of Shapochnik or of Sweden, yes. So.
Thank you, Agata. So we have another question from Doris Sung. Please, Doris, and then I will ask the questions that have been written on the chat and question and answers box.
Okay, thank you so much, Agata, for this very fascinating presentation. You have actually answered a lot of my questions, and I was thinking about the was going to ask the opportunities for women artists to exhibit and also the reception. And if you allow me, I would like to do a bit of comparison on the socialist China situation, which is, as you know, the high communist regime in the 60s to the early 80s, when artists were employed by the state to produce work. And for women artists, most of them were anonymous, right? The works was never known who did them. And so it makes it very difficult for us researchers who research on that period of women's artists' work. So I was wondering what it was like for artists in the Eastern Bloc, because from your presentation it was a whole different story. And also since the early 90s, when China just opened up, there was that difference between the official and unofficial art world, which means the government sponsor and the so-called underground art world. And it also makes it very difficult for women to establish their career, because it's kind of a reflection from the West and what they like to see. And so it became all this very macho type of large installations that is being shown. And women artists' works are generally not like that. And then the last comments or questions that I would like to ask is about the Western notion of feminism. So for Chinese women artists, they, yeah, as I'm sure it's the same as women in the Eastern Bloc, they did not really want to associate themselves with that notion or that idea of women artists, because their fear of being pigeonholed. So could you elaborate a little bit more about that? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Again, a couple of important issues that I will try again to answer quickly, shortly, but properly, maybe. Women artists were recognized by name. It was not a problem for women artists in Eastern Europe with anonymity. So this is easy. It is easy to answer. So this problem did not exist. The problem of official and unofficial art scene is very, very complicated. During these meetings of our research seminar that I mentioned at the beginning, we discussed it a lot. And this is complicated because in each country the situation was different. And in some countries, we can talk about official art that is art supported by the government and initiated even by the government. And we can talk about alternative art scene that is accepted by the government. It is not, and also sponsored in a way that that, for example, galleries were state-sponsored, but the state did not did not expect any special messages, I would say, from this art. But we can also talk about underground culture in different countries. Yes, that is a culture that was even sometimes illegal. Yes, in a sense that it was not recognized by the government. It was considered illegal. And so the situation was really very dynamic, and it is hard to answer it in a short period of time. And as I said, situation of women in these different areas was also different, and I can repeat that situation of women artists active in this alternative, unofficial, illegal circus was not better, maybe even worse than in official circles, in a sense of possibilities of maybe in a sense of recognition, or maybe not recognition, but also I would say that possibilities of creating, yes, yes, I would say so. And again, the question about strategy is very, very much complicated, because it seems that women artists, I mean, it would be maybe banal to say that there are as many strategies as women artists, but I would say that no, I really don't know how to summarize it. As there are interesting examples, like probably one of the most famous woman artists from Eastern Bloc, that is Magdalena Abakanowicz, who functioned as official artist in Poland. She was very much prominent artist, and I would say that she was in a way used. It is interesting, and it is probably similar to the situation in China, when government used artists to present themselves as, for example, modern country. Yes? So used also women artists in cultural policy, and some of women artists participated in these actions. So I know this does not answer your question, but it's really too hard to answer it, as I said shortly. And about Western notion of feminism, and yes, many women artists rejected. But what is interesting is that many of them now claim that they are feminists. I mean, many women artists who did not want to be seen as feminists, did not want to be called feminists in the 70s, for example, they now say that yes, we were feminists, we are feminists, some of them, as I said. And obviously, I think that it is related to the way how feminists functioned in the 70s, for example, and how it functions now. So, yeah.
Thank you. So I have one question which was written in the chat by Lara Perry. So I will read it now. I love your image archive of socialist beauty consumerism. Have you compared this to Western beauty consumerism? Do we think that do we think this is a context in which socialist and capitalist women had most in common?
I haven't compared it. I was thinking about it actually today in the morning, but maybe I should have this comparison. But no, I haven't compared it. And also I must admit that I haven't compared it in detail to other socialist states. I know I know some examples of other women magazines. But no, I haven't compared, and I don't know whether we can say that it is something that women from East and West had in common. Probably it is one of the areas, and as we said earlier, another one is anti-imperialism, another one would be housework. So I think that there are really many many joint areas of interest for women artists. But obviously this a specific context probably make some issues more important in certain periods, in certain places. So I would say this like this.
There is also a comment from Elizabeth Pruszyński about the other sections that could be added to your list. Such as maternity, couple, or ecology, for example?
Yes, yeah, obviously, yes. I just I have chosen a couple of categories because my lecture was to last about an hour, so I could not end more. But yes, obviously, ecology and the problem, for example, of industrialization that was very strong in Eastern European countries. And that was one of the contexts, yes.
I also have a question and comment from Jana Kukaine in question and answers box. Dear Agata, thank you very much for your lecture. I would like to elaborate more on your argument about not using the Western term of feminism to discuss the socialist period. However, there had actually been some references to the Western feminism discourse too, also in the examples you kindly provided. For example, the public-private problem, the female body, sexuality, etc. Is it not enough to make a conceptual bridge from East to West? Even more, it is important to remember that feminist agendas had been already introduced to several countries before 1945. So doesn't provide enough ground to claim a feminist genealogy?
Yes and no. I mean, I wanted to. It's probably my fault, but it is very difficult to make a precise arguments and precise narration. I wanted very much to avoid comparing these women artists with Western notion of feminism, but understood very narrowly as feminism that was developed in the West countries at the end of the 60s and in the 70s. But obviously, if we understand feminism in a widely, in this as I said, as something that is a critical comment on women's situation, then obviously, yes, that is what I wanted to show, that we have this discussion. And also, I know that I exaggerated by not comparing these women artists with artists, for example, from Western Europe. But as I said, I did it on purpose because I wanted to somehow propose an alternative to narrations that I developed in most of, I don't know, textbooks, exhibitions, and so on, so on. So, and obviously, yes, we can show many similarities, and we can make we can show that there were common interests. But I just did not want to start presentation on women artists from Eastern Europe from Western examples, yes, and to show that we also had it in Western Europe. This is definitely what I wanted to avoid, but rather to show that these artworks, women artists developed discussion on such subjects as anti-fascism, anti-imperialism, also beauty and motherhood and so on, because it was present in public discourse in Eastern Europe. And before, yes, it was present for a long time. So it was my objective in this presentation.
And there is another question and comment from Karolina Majewska-Gued. Thank you for your stimulating lecture. One more question about collaborations. In Poland, there were several collaborations between male artists and their significant others. Was it also typical for other socialist states? If so, how are they interpreted? In what frameworks? Thank you.
I am afraid I'm not competent to answer this question. I have never researched male art in Eastern Europe, particularly. So I know a couple of examples of very interesting pieces by women artists from different countries, and also examples of that deal with women's issues. But really, I'm sorry, but I'm not able to answer a question, more general question about male art in Eastern Europe. Although that I know that it was obviously one of the ways to circulate ideas.
So I think, Anais, please tell me if I'm wrong, but we don't have more questions.
Yeah, I think this was the last one we got in the Q&A and discussion.
So please tell me, Maura and Anais, should we finish or should I ask the last question?
You can ask the last question. I don't see any other hand raised, so go for it.
Sounds good.
So I go for it. Agata, I was thinking about another thing. Some of the artists you spoke about, such as, for example, Natalia LL from Poland, had a relative success in Western countries, Western museums. They were considered as feminists. Obviously, we can discuss how much they identified themselves with this term. But I was wondering if at that time there was an echo of their careers in the West, in Poland or in Eastern Bloc. Well, for example, the success of an exhibition in Vienna for Natalia LL had an echo in Poland and could influence her own career in the Eastern Europe.
There are few. One can find some references to her exhibiting abroad in press reviews, for example, and but one can answer this question in two ways. I think that for artists from Eastern Europe, it was always good to exhibit abroad in behind Iron Curtain. Yes, it was also considered as a success. So if she was recognized outside Poland and outside Eastern Bloc, it was definitely good for her career, for her situation in Poland. But on the other hand, being recognized by feminist artists, feminist critics, behind the Iron Curtain was not something that was particularly appreciated. It was rather the message was that she's not. But sometimes the message was that they misunderstood her art, that she wanted to say something different, that they don't understand her, they don't understand Polish art. So yes and no again, yes. Definitely it was always good to exhibit broad, I would say, for a position of women artists. But also, I would say maybe it's not the answer to your question, but I find it very important when I think about discussing women artists in European socialist states. But we should maybe stop discussing the most famous women artists from Eastern European world. I mean, Natalia is great, but there are so many undiscovered women artists, still undiscovered, and many interesting works. And even I know it's not serious to say it, but if you Google them, you can hardly find anything. Yes, on different women artists, you can hardly find good quality reproductions. I think that history of women artists in European socialist states is much richer than we know, yes, that we think. And it is definitely something that should be discovered, maybe, I don't know, enriched, definitely.
This is what the team project is for.
Yes, exactly. Yes, so that's why it's so great. Yes, and many unknown artists and unknown narrations. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So in your presentation, we also saw you mentioned the artists that should be published on the AWARE website soon, and on whom you worked with your colleagues.
Yes.
So I hope that soon, when you Google these names, you will be able to find them on AWARE website in bilingual versions in French and in English. And so also our website, just to remind you, is conceived in the way that you are often easily guided from one artist to the other. So maybe you can Google an artist which is more famous and then find another one which is less known. So we hope it will be inspiring for everybody. So thank you very much, Agata, for your time and for having shared with us your research and that of your colleagues also. It was a very stimulating encounter for all of us. Thank you, Maura Riley, for being with us and being the boss of this amazing project. And thank you, Anaïs and Roche and Justine Lacombe, for organizing every meeting. Please don't forget that we will have other encounters with researchers in the next months. And thank you all for your participation, your questions, your interest in the topic. And I hope we will all see each other soon.
And a special thanks to you, Matilda. And also I wanted to mention the French Embassy in Poland and the Katarzyna Kozera Foundation, who both support us in this team project. So thank you all. And see you very soon.
Yes, thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Agata.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.